with both my kids, I had hyperemesis gardevium the whole time, which means
Okay.
you're throwing up for like 10 months straight. And I did it for 2 years because I had 14 months apart, my kids.
This is a great way to start a stream. We're live.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everyone.
Hey guys, this is Angry Mgtow. I've got Amanda Wolfchild here. I know that you guys hate when I have chicks on the channel, so here's another one for you.
I'm a
And
fun chick.
what did you say?
I said, I'm
One?
a fun chick.
But you're still a chick. All women are like that. I thought you understood Mgtows.
I'm a married chick, so it doesn't matter. It's not like I'm trying to deal with guys anyway. I already got my guy.
You are monkey branching, okay? You are waiting to break that poor bastard's heart and then find the next guy, and possibly even me, which is not going to happen, Amanda.
No, I'm not interested in another guy. I'm only interested in my husband.
Uh-huh.
I really am. I'm just one of them kind of people that once I'm with somebody that's really kind of it for me, I've been falling in love with this man slowly since the 8th grade. I shit you not. I could tell you a bunch of stories of different times I fell in love with him just a little bit.
8th grade.
That's when I met him. I was in the 8th grade. He was in the 9th, but we're the same age.
Wow.
I wasn't held back or anything. My birthday is in October, so you don't start until the next year when you're 6.
Oh God, thank God I was like, so I'm actually an October baby too. And back when I'm in my 30s, so back when I was your age, we started school the same year that everyone else started school.
Oh no, I think it changed like before my older brother was born. Because he's in his 30s and, well, no, he's 30. Yeah, he's 30. And I think it changed around the time he was born, or when he was little, when he went to school.
Yeah, that's like weird for me. Like when I see people like that are like 18 and senior year, I'm like, what, did you get left back? No.
Yeah, that's just how it is now. My sons will have to go through the same thing. They both have late birthdays.
Okay. All right. So let's jump on into it. So women, well, first off, let me get this out there. So you're a part of the anti-skeptic community. So are you a feminist? Do you identify as a feminist? Do you enjoy the taste of pussy? Let's get out there.
No, I'm not a feminist. I've never been a feminist. I don't really identify under any labels. And I've never tasted pussy. I've never ate out a chick. I've never done that.
You've never been with a girl.
No, never.
That's a
I've only
shock.
been with 2 guys, so definitely never been with a girl either.
Okay. So how did you get into the whole anti-feminist thing?
Well, I used to like get on Facebook a bunch. I was sort of trolling my own family because they're so very conservative that it's annoying. And a lot of the shit that they put out on Facebook, like they don't go very deep into the story. So if you just read the articles and everything, you think, oh, the shit that the left is saying, it makes sense. It makes more sense than the crazy shit I heard my right-wing family spewing. So I would just kind of troll them with that shit and just argue with them. And then on YouTube, looking at stuff like that, you obviously find the opposite to it, the antithesis. And I discovered Bearing. And this was the funniest fucking dude I had ever seen. Oh my, I fucking love Bearing. And from him, I discovered Suit Yourself, who's just as fucking hilarious. And from him, I found everybody. And I was just everywhere, in everybody's comment sections and everybody's live streams. That's what I do.
Okay. You're a troll, though. You are a fucking troll. You are a
I'm not a
fucking troll.
troll.
You're a troll.
I tell the truth and I speak common sense to people. I might be a bit of a bitch at times, but that's only when someone's an asshole to me. I'm never mean to someone who was nice to me to start with.
So let's talk a little bit about MGTOW very, very quickly. So you're not a fan of this guy named Markov, which I've never actually watched before.
No, I'm not a fan of him. He stalks me.
Before the stream started, I said maybe he just wants to hate fuck you. Maybe if you just came on, showed him your boobs once, he'd just calm down a little bit.
That'll never happen. Only my husband gets to see me naked.
All right. So, question, very important question right now, okay?
Go for it.
What size are your tits?
Right now I have a C cup. I used to be much larger though back when I weighed a little bit more. I After I had my last son, I was up to an E for a while when I was breastfeeding.
E. Holy cow.
Yeah,
God bless you.
that's what happens when you have two kids 14 months apart. And you had big tits to begin with. They just keep getting bigger.
My God. Your husband must have loved you at that time.
No, he prefers my tits smaller. He likes smaller tits. He likes my C's.
Mm. You see,
Some
that's the
guys
thing.
like that. I liked them better when they were bigger. I preferred my big tits. He prefers them small.
You didn't have any back problems when they were that big then.
I have back problems either way, so I didn't notice a difference.
I never understood that. Some girls complain. I'm vaping my ass off over here. Some
That's
girls,
fine. I'm having a cigarette.
some girls come. Yeah, but I'm gonna be the one. You're gonna be the one who ends up with lung cancer.
I don't care. They can't even tell me what's wrong with me now. I could die tomorrow for all I know. Why would I give a fuck?
It's like a fucked up outlook on life, lady. But I don't know. Like for some guys, me personally, I'm back and forth. There's niceties about small tits and big tits. Bigger tits tend to be softer, but then smaller tits tend to be firmer.
Well, I mean, once you have kids, firm pretty much goes out the window either which way. Like they don't hang to my knees, but their firm is gone after you breastfed. They're always soft.
Why did you like them when they were bigger then?
I'm a girl. You want big tits when you're a girl, especially because my little sister loved to tease me that she had bigger tits. Like she developed earlier than me, so she had bigger tits than me sooner. And I just loved the fact that my tits got bigger than hers. I thought it was hilarious because she got so upset about it. So it was funny to me.
Do you ever notice it's like a universal thing? Like even if a girl isn't gay, she still likes tits. You ever notice that?
Yeah. Like I've said before that their chicks are just good to look at. Like we're attractive, especially when we're naked. If there was the right chick, if she talked me into it, my husband could have a threesome. I told him that. I offered to him. He didn't. I just said that in a sex stream I was having with the white YouTuber earlier too. He didn't ask. I offered to him that if he ever wanted to and he found a chick that could talk me into it, he could have a threesome. Especially because he was a virgin when we met. So definitely needs to pound another pussy.
Wait, he's never been with another chick.
Nope, never. I've only been with one other person.
Ooh. He's gonna get curious at some point.
I don't know. We have a lot of really great sex, so I think he's good.
I don't know. How long you guys have been? See, you tongue-tied me. How long have you guys been together?
We've been together for like 7 years. We're working on 6 years married, though. But we've known each other, like I said, since the 8th grade. We've been friends since then.
It's really weird, though. I mean, I look at I want to say my fucking grandparents, but even my grandparents split. I really don't have a good history. My parents split. My grandparents split. On my mother's side, my grandparents' parents split. Of like 4 generations of fuck ups.
That's like really important too, don't you? I went to college for a year for early childhood development, and seeing a stable relationship played out before you is really important in the development of your idea of a stable relationship subconsciously, psychologically.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just pointing that out. That is true. That is fact.
it definitely makes sense. I mean, like if you look at socioeconomics, if you look at women who go on something like welfare or government assistance programs in the 1960s or 1970s, it increases the likelihood that their children or their daughters will be on government assistance and their children's children will be on government assistance. It becomes like a perpetuating cycle.
Well, yeah, the system was built that way on purpose. They want the people like that. Like, have you ever watched that movie? It's a Justin Timberlake movie, but it's about how they use time instead of money. Like, you pay for everything with time, and the poor people keep dying, and the rich people have the time all locked up in the vaults. It's like that. They do that on purpose. They want you to stay poor. That's why welfare, it's not a hand up. They don't give help to like me and my husband. We couldn't get food stamps or anything like that. We scrape by, and we're trying to do something better with our lives and something better for our kids. You can only get it if you're willing to keep popping out kids and not have a man and live like that. And men can only get it if they don't have a woman and they have a bunch of problems they can make up. They
You
do
know,
that on purpose.
it's
Sorry.
kind of it's kind of odd though. Yeah, shut up for a minute. It's kind of odd though because I look at the dynamics between men and women. You met your guy when you were in you said eighth grade. He was in ninth grade. You were the same age, so you guys were around 14.
Yep.
And
At 13, 14, yeah.
And like I've heard like different people say this before. Like actually I've heard older women say this multiple times to get a girl when she's still a teenager so you can bring her up the way that you want to. You ever hear
Oh,
that
my
before?
husband sure as shit didn't bring me up. I do what I want. I always have. I
You do
raised
what
my
you want. Oh my God.
Yeah, I raised myself since I was a toddler. I've always done what I wanted to do. And nobody makes my decisions for me. I make them.
Wait, so who leads the relationship?
We work together. There's no there's no boss around here. We do shit together. We come to decisions together. We have discussions. Like when
Okay.
it comes to the kids, I'm more in control of that because I'm the one who works with the kids every day. When it comes to like the bills, I let him take the lead a little bit more because in deciding what we're going to buy or where we can put our money or when we're going to borrow, because he's better financially and we both know that. But I'm still the one that takes the responsibility. I'm the one that's paying the bills. Like he makes the money. He doesn't do anything else. That's all he does is work. I
Okay.
clean the house, I raise the kids, I cook the food, I pay the bills.
Okay. So he respects the fact that you're at home most of the time, so you know what's going on. My
Mm-hmm.
question is this: when he makes a decision, do you follow it?
We come to a decision together. Like neither one of us ever just makes a decision blindly. That would be horrible. We talk about everything.
All
Like
right.
when it came to our sons though, I completely handed the decision over to him about circumcision because I don't have a penis, so that's not my decision. That's not my area. That has nothing to do with me.
Just like stuck a dagger in my chest. Why did you have to use the C word?
I'm sorry, but that was a decision that we had to make that I gave complete control to him. So that's
What
why
was
it came up.
and what did his decision end up being? To circumcise or not circumcise?
He decided to circumcise. Now, I
Oh.
always say that if we had been older and he had looked into it more, he probably would have decided not to. I
Hmm.
think the major factor in his decision was the fact that he was circumcised, and
He's
and
yep.
I explained to him that he was going to have the discussion with the boys about the fact that they look different when it came that time. Like when they started asking, why does daddy's wee wee look different than my wee wee? He was going to have to explain, not me, because he's the one with the penis. That's his responsibility. And he didn't want to have that discussion with them. He didn't want to have to explain to them why they might look like other boys, not look like other boys in the locker room and stuff too. Because the majority of boys in America are circumcised. They would be different if they were not. But it's
Yeah.
getting to be more prominent to not circumcise, so it probably would have been fairly normal. He probably could have made that decision.
It's unfortunate. I mean, you bring up one of the great points with circumcision that it's done very much for cosmetic reasons these days, more
Mm-hmm.
so that children don't feel alienated than anything else. I mean, I've definitely been with girls who like, especially being in America, it's difficult. Being with a girl in America, I'm not circumcised, thankfully. All my brothers are. And being with some women, like they'll look at your dick like something's wrong with it, like it's dirty or like it's weird, you know? And so I understand where you're coming from with that, but There's a lot of friends that I have that don't even have like feeling in their dicks anymore because they've been circumcised. I'm sure you've heard
Because
that.
they got it done wrong. I've heard that happen sometimes.
Not because they got it done wrong. I mean, for example, when a man gets circumcised, the head of his penis, it develops a new layer of skin, and it ferments, so it basically becomes a lot less sensitive. There's also tons and tons of nerve endings in the foreskin itself. So when you remove that, you're literally, it's kind of like cutting off the labia for a woman. Like it's very it's very serious. It's like desensitizing the clitoris and cutting off the labia, and that's what happens with a lot of guys. I mean, for me, I don't really have a lot of sensation. I'm not circumcised, so like I can only imagine like what some guys say. Like some guys say I literally have no sensation at all on my penis, and the thing is, uh, the rates of what do you call it? When guys' dicks don't work.
Um, Erectile dysfunction. There's the word.
The rate of erectile dysfunction is much higher among men who are circumcised than those who aren't. Did you know that?
I did not. My husband might have thought about that more if he'd ever had a problem with that. Like he did mention the whole sensitivity thing, but he said I don't know what it'd be like if I had, not been circumcised, but I don't have any problem with having been.
Mhm.
Like he doesn't notice any problem with not feeling things.
It's even different, and this was a study done by women. They found that men who are circumcised versus men who are not circumcised, men who are circumcised tend to have harder sex. So they thrust harder, looking for trying to find sensation, while men who are not circumcised, they just develop more of a steady rhythm.
Oh, well, I like it when he fucks me hard anyway.
I've said that to a lot of women, and they're like, "Oh, that's great," but think about it on his end. He's doing it because he's trying to get some feeling, not because he's. You see what I'm saying?
But he doesn't say that. Like, I mean, I'd have to ask him when he got home, but we've had similar discussions before when it was circumcising them time, and he does not say that's why he fucks me hard.
Everyone likes to fuck a girl hard sometimes, but it just varies a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure it varies from guy to guy. I'm just saying, I've only ever fucked two guys. I don't have a lot of experience in that area of whether they felt it more or less. Like, they were both circumcised, so.
Hmm. It's funny you say that your husband's gonna have to have that talk with them. They're gonna talk to you about it when they get older too, if it pisses them off. You know that, right?
Well, no, I would just tell him your dad decided. Y'all have penises. This was nothing to do with me. I don't have a penis.
You can't really take that attitude though. You still had to make the decision, so you can't say, "Well, my."
But I didn't. I mean, if it bothers you, I'll have a discussion. Look, I mean, shit happens. You were too young to make the decision. We're the adults. We made it. If you have a problem with it, I'm sorry. But suck it up.
Wow.
That's
Honestly,
how life is.
that's like, I mean, all right. In the United States, it's actually illegal to cut any part of a female's vagina
No,
without her consent.
no, since we've gotten older and I've actually done research on circumcision, I'm completely against the idea. I don't think anybody should circumcise their children.
Okay, but you are going to tell your kids to suck it up if they complain.
Yeah. It's the same thing my mom told me about the fact that she didn't get me tubes in my ears, and now I have more scar tissue than if I had gotten tubes, and I'll probably go deaf. Suck it up. I didn't get you the surgery because I thought you were one of the kids that they were doing it to unnecessarily, and I didn't want you to have that done unnecessarily. She thought she was making the best decision for me. That's all she could do.
So I kind of get what you're saying. You don't necessarily agree with the decision that you may have made, but it happened.
Yeah. Like the only thing that your parent can do is make the best decision for you. So as long as that's their intention, as long as that's where they're coming from, I was just trying to make the best possible decision for you, then that's all you could do is just suck it up and deal with what happened because of it. It's not really their fault. There's no fault because there's no ill intent.
Mm.
It's just something that happened. It's just how it is. That's how life is.
You sound like you've been through some shit in your day.
Yeah, like I told you, I've lived a lot in my 27 years.
Let's talk about that. So, tell us about your life a little bit, how you've lived.
I don't know. What do you want to know? I'm an open book.
All right, so you haven't fucked a lot of guys, so you weren't a slut.
No.
But I mean, were you homeless? Did you have problems with your family? Did
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Okay.
Like we were homeless all the time. Uh,
What?
yeah, it happened all the time. Like my parents, my mom was 13 when she moved in with my dad and his mom. And oh, hold on. What, son? You want Pokemon? I'm blocking it. Isaac's blocking it. I don't know. Go on, sweet. Go play with your brother. He's not doing nothing. Sorry, give me 2 seconds here. They're fighting.
Go for it. All right, so guys, I hope you're enjoying this little sit down. My personal take on when we were talking about circumcision, I don't agree with it, but I think that she obviously doesn't agree with it anymore either. And I personally think there's going to be a lot of guys who find the subject difficult to deal with simply because it's something that they may feel like was done to them, not and rather than for them. So I honestly think there's going to be a lot of guys that are upset with it, and ultimately find themselves feeling indifferent about it. And especially as the practice becomes less prevalent, I definitely think that we're going to see more guys just saying, how could this happen? I think that reverse circumcision may become something big in the United States where a lot of guys might start trying to literally get the procedure reversed. Let's go ahead and look at the comments, what you guys are saying. All right. Let's see what you fuckboys are saying. Uncut Mgtow. Or
Sorry about that.
that's
They're
fine.
they're fussy because it's time for them to be chilling out before bath time and bedtime.
I hear you. I have based mama on every week, so she has the kids in the background. It doesn't matter. Actually, yours are a lot better because that's why I asked you. You don't have any toddlers.
Yeah, they're 4 and 5. They're just my oldest. He gets a little whiny when it's bedtime, but he's the better behaved. My youngest is on the spectrum, so he'll just scream for no reason sometimes.
This video already has 4 dislikes. They love you.
I don't know why so many Mgtow have a problem with me. I have no problem with Mgtow. They all think I do. They call me anti-Mgtow. I'm not anti-Mgtow. There's a lot of common sense Mgtow debates or Mgtow arguments that I agree with and have publicly agreed with many times. I don't know why they think I'm anti-Mgtow.
MGTOWs are funny. Like so, for example, for a while I was a part of the separatist movement. There's a lot of MGTOWs who don't want to have anything to do with women. They don't want MGTOW. They don't want women speaking. There's a lot of distrust
The
between men.
Miggles.
The Niggalies.
I decided they need to be called something. They need a separation from MGTOW, like when our community, if that's what you want to call us, are talking about them because we're tired of having to say hashtag not all. Like there's a lot of MGTOW that we get along with quite well. And then there's these crazy ones. So they're the Migglies.
Wait a minute. I would have been one of those Niggalies. That doesn't sound so nice. The Niggalies.
I'm sorry, does it bother you? I thought it was cute.
I'm trying to figure out what it stands for.
Because it sounds similar to MGTOW, and because I call Markov Miggly Puff. That's just where it came from.
Okay, so you didn't grow up easy. You had, you said
No.
that you said your somebody moved into whose house?
My mom was 13 when my grandparents kicked her out and she moved in with my dad and his mom. And my dad was 15. And they got married when they were 8 or when she was 16 and he was 18, right? Wait, no. She was 16 when my brother was born. She was 15 when they got married and he was 18. Yeah, that's how it worked out.
They kicked a 13-year-old out.
Yeah, well, she was on drugs and shit.
Wow.
She went nuts after her dad raped her. But
Okay.
but yeah, so they moved and they didn't do well together. My dad liked to keep my mom knocked up and pregnant because then she wasn't doing drugs or drinking. It was all for him. But
Right.
they didn't let we bounced around a lot. Like I was real little when they were together, so I just remember moving around a lot and wandering around in the woods a lot with my brother. Like
Wait,
he was
so you guys were homeless?
well, when we were real little, we would live in different places. Like we weren't homeless until later. But basically, we'd get kicked out of the house a lot so that they could do drugs and drink and have a good time.
Your mother and father?
Yeah, and my mom's or my dad's mom, and all of them.
Oh my god.
So my 6-year-old brother would be watching me, and I was 5, and my sister would have been 4, and my little brother would have been let's see, I was 3 when he was born, so when I was 5, he would have been 2. And we'd just be wandering around in this little town, looking for snake pits and wandering the trails. Sometimes my brother would leave us alone and go wander off to do shit himself and just tell us to stay there or get back home ourselves.
Don't take this wrong. That sounds like the very definition of white trash.
My husband says that we were the reason CPS was invented.
Oh my god. So,
But they split up eventually, and my mom wanted to run around and do drugs and shit, so we just got bounced around between different family members. And my dad would take us sometimes, but his wife was fucking crazy as hell. I can't stand that bitch to this
so
day.
you remarried. You
Yeah,
remarried.
he married my mom's best friend.
Whoa.
Yeah, they split up because he got drunk and he was fucked up and he killed our puppies. Like our chow had just had 2 little puppies and my dad kicked him in the head and killed him. And then he hit her in the face in the front lawn and busted out the car windows with a tire iron. And it was a little town, so the cops weren't far away, and they were heading to our house, so he walked away from it, and they picked him up and took him to jail. And they split up at that point. And then my mom's best friend, bailed him out so that he'd get her some more drugs. And then they got married, and he raised her 2 girls who were also fucking crazy.
Just curious, what was their drug of choice? I'm gonna guess heroin, but
Meth.
Jesus. Oh
This is
god.
Texas. It's meth. Yeah, but eventually my mom came back and got us, and she moved us in with freaking any boyfriend she could get her hands on, basically.
So
Like,
you know what my next question is gonna be, right?
go for it.
Did you do drugs eventually?
Oh no, I started smoking weed in college. That's the only I don't count that as a drug. That's a plant. It just fucking grows that way. But I've never done drugs. My siblings have all done drugs. They all started doing drugs when they were little. I didn't start smoking weed till I was 18, and I just smoked it in college.
Okay. What about your husband?
No, he's super straight laced. My husband grew up in a very religious family. He went to a religious college. They sent him off and spent a bunch of money so that he would go marry a good religious girl. Instead, he comes home engaged to a tattooed, knocked up redhead from the trailer park.
Not so your first kid is not with him?
Yeah, my first kid's with him.
Okay, because he said knocked up.
Hmm.
That's why I figured he got you after you got pregnant. All right.
No, no, no. All of my pregnancies were with him. I miscarried our first when I was 18, and I got pregnant with our second when I was 21, and that's when we got married. I was 5 months pregnant with him.
Okay. Okay. So you guys, like you said, you've been together about 7 years,
Yeah,
seven,
we've been
8.
together a long time.
Okay. Now, this relationship that you guys have, that's something that a lot of people our age, millennials, don't have. And I mean, well, we often talk about why are women so evil? And right off the bat, you said some things that imply you understand that women can be fucking evil.
Well, I mean, some women, but some men can be evil too. I've seen some evil fucking men. Like my mom, one guy that she was dating in Austin, he got pissed off at my brother. He was probably on drugs too, though. But he got pissed off at my brother for spilling some scrambled eggs on the floor, like dropping them on the floor by accident. And he went to hit my brother. So instead, him and my mom and my Uncle Buddy ended up in a fight. And this guy was trying to stab everybody, and my older brother's sneaking us all out of the house. When we went back to get our stuff later, there's just blood all over the house from this crazy fucker. Dudes can be evil too.
They're fucked up people. They're fucked up people on both sides, but female nature does exist. Can you admit to that?
No.
What?
That's like saying there's a male nature.
There is a male nature.
But that's like when y'all run around spewing that evil female nature and all females behave that way, don't you get that it sounds like you're screaming out matriarchy? It sounds like you're calling out just like the feminists.
It does. It does feel like we live in a matriarchy right now. You've been to Twitter lately?
Well, y'all are just a little too wrapped up in the internet then. Like I've said, I can understand the common sense MGTOW arguments. Shit has gotten out of hand. The feminists are getting out of hand. That's why people are starting to call them out. We're really finally.
But you're saying the feminists, but you're acting like women as a whole were separate from them. I'm not saying you. Obviously, you've had a fucked up life, but I'm talking about women in general. They collected their spoils from feminism. You don't see women saying that we need to give up some of the privileges or entitlements that we've gotten as a result of feminism that have caused society to become unstable.
Well, there's a lot of us that do want things to be more equal. Like, I am a huge advocate that child custody should be taken care of much differently than it is. The science says that the most important role model in a child's life is their same-sex parent, and that you need both parents equally to create a developed person. So the first thing that should happen in child custody is a counselor, a therapist should step in to figure out the best situation, the best needs for the child, and how to calm things down so that they can have equal time spent with both parents, as long as that is safe for the child.
But what about primary custody?
Primary custody bothers me. Like, I wish people would work out their shit and their situations a little more. Like me and my husband, we planned for stuff like this when we found out I was pregnant before we ever got married. And we had to change our plans a little bit when we bought a house. We decided that if we ever got divorced, the kids would stay in the home. Like, we would both be raising our kids. Our kids would never leave this home. I would live here during the week when he was working, or as his schedule fit, depending on if, he changed jobs or I got a job that didn't suit that schedule, whatever. I would live here when he was working, and he would live elsewhere. And then he would come, probably his parents' house, in all honesty, knowing the situation. He'd go live at his parents' house during the week while he worked. And then on the weekend, he would live here with the kids, and I would go live probably at my brother's house while I worked. And we figured out an idea for the bills, too. Like, we would split the bills. He would still pay the mortgage. I would supply the food for the house. Like, why can't you just come up with an amicable situation where both people are paying equally and the kid comes first? That's your responsibility.
The average woman doesn't think like that.
Well, the problem, I don't think it's about the average woman. I think it's more about the education that's been going on lately. You're selling people, men and women alike, this bucket of dreams of what life and relationships and family is all about. And they're trying to cash a check that just won't fucking cash. That's not reality. We need to be teaching people about what relationships and responsibility really are, especially the responsibility of a child. And the fact that you get that responsibility from the second you're old enough to make the child.
Mm-hmm.
This is why my channel is just about common sense. I just come at this shit from, why can't you see the common sense of this? Because the world doesn't seem to work on common sense anymore.
This is a really deep convo. I was hoping to just harass you a little bit.
So I can only be mean to people who are mean to me. You'd have to be mean to me for me to shitpost with you.
What do you think has been the most important thing in your relationship that's helped to allow your relationship to foster and grow?
Communication, really. I mean, you have to be able to talk to each other about any fucking thing. And you have to be able to understand each other, like where each other's coming from. Like he knows I'm crazy as fuck, and I know he's got a lot of bullshit, and we work because nobody else would put up with his bullshit, and nobody else could handle my crazy.
You're crazy. What kind of crazy are you?
Yeah, I'm fucking nuts. Like I don't know if you know me, but I'm the kind of person that I'm really, really nice as long as a person is nice to me. But if you fuck with me, I'll fuck you up. Especially if you fuck with my kids. I'd stab somebody for fucking with my kids. I'm crazy.
You ever been to jail?
No. Come close a couple times, but I don't get caught.
Let's talk about relationships between men and women in the bedroom. So, for example, women denying men sex. Have you ever denied your husband?
I mean, yeah, sometimes I'm too tired, or especially when I was pregnant, I was too sick. He didn't have a problem. He doesn't want to have sex if I'm not into it. But for the most part, it's no, we fuck all the time. The only time I would not, because I want to have sex with him all the time. Like, I'm addicted to my husband's dick. The only time I would not want to have sex with him is if I was sick or if I'd had a really long day and I was just flat out too tired to do it. And he's usually pretty understanding about that. Sometimes he has times where he's just had too long a day and I'm horny. That's why you have a vibrator.
Now that's a good question. I mean, so you don't think? All right, so you're not against him looking at porn and jerking off when you're not?
No, God, no. I look at porn. Why wouldn't he?
This is what the millennials are like.
I'm from Texas. This is what Texas bitches are like. You don't know a lot of us, I guess. Like, I got a lot of friends. That's why the whole female nature thing bugs me. I knew bitches like that in high school. I mean, of course, there's all them little preppy, annoying, privileged little bitches. Everybody's got groups like that, but the majority of the chicks that I hang out with and that I know and that I've known throughout my life are decent, normal, common sense women like me. We do exist. Y'all just don't look for us as often, I guess. And I think we get married younger too.
That does seem to be a pattern. Like I said it beforehand, like I was talking about it, that, I've heard multiple women say that you should get a girl when she's young.
I don't think it's because they're teaching us. I think we just find a man who's smart and knows that, holy shit, here's a decent woman. I ain't letting her go.
Mm-hmm. But you and your husband actually sorted out child custody, the house. You made these decisions before you even had children.
Well, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, yeah, I'm the one that decided that. Like, he needed to know this is how I need to know your feelings on this, but these are my feelings on this. This is how I feel this is going to go. Like, when I found out I was pregnant, we weren't married or anything. We were just dating. I told him, you can go back to your family if you want to. I mean, we're young. They'll send you back to college. You could tell them I cheated on you, and I'll go along with that. You could say it ain't your baby. I was fine with that. And he didn't want to do that. He wanted to stay with me. So I said, fine. Well, we're not married or anything. If we split up, if you go and you leave me, you agreed to this, you want this relationship. If you leave me now, you're not taking the baby with you. I'll never deny you the right to see your child. We'll split, evenly when we see this child, but you don't get to take the baby. Because I knew that his family had money and shit. And in my head, I was worried he was going to run off and try and steal my child from me. That's why we got this shit settled then. But when we got married, it was a whole different story. We were doing this together. I knew he wasn't going to run off and leave me. He knew I wasn't going to run off and leave him. We made a commitment to that.
So do you guys have anything in like writing?
No, we've just agreed to it. But we know each other. Like, he knows me. He knows I'm crazy like that. What I say is what I mean. I'm very honest. And he's the same way. What he says is what he means.
Okay. So it's one thing to say that not all women are like that, but then you say it's the education, you say it's a lot of things, but then you have to look at how tilted things are against men in the child system, in the alimony system, and the fact that women do exploit these systems. So how do you respond to that when it's so tilted in that direction? Because not all these women identify as feminists, but many of them still use the system in that way.
Well, I say really that comes down to knowing the person that you're getting involved with in the first place. Like if you have a good people jump into marriage too quickly. That's why I say this is all about education and people being sold a dream of lies and they think that they know what they're doing, and you get married based on infatuation with no idea of what love really is and what work in a relationship and a marriage is. And then they jump right back out of the thing and realize, holy shit, this crazy bitch I married because the sex was good and she made me a sandwich is now going to take all my shit. Like,
Speaking of sandwiches, if your husband came and told you, "Baby, go make me a sandwich," what would you
he
do?
does it all the time and I make him a sandwich.
You say sandwich. Do you know that?
I say sandwich. I say it that way because it's funnier.
So, I mean, despite everything, despite the fact that you do, you do make decisions together and you do have a pretty open and relaxed relationship, you do still treat him like a guy. You do still take care of him.
Yeah, because I like to.
Okay. So, do you think that it's a wife's role to take care of her husband?
Well, I mean, I think it's the role of the person that does that. Like, between two people in a relationship, one of you is naturally going to be the more caring and the person that thinks about that kind of stuff a little more deeply, and the other one isn't. That's just going to be usually, I mean, if you're both thinking about that shit too deeply, you're probably going to get bored with each other at some point because you're both too fucking emotional. So one of you is going to think more along the lines of taking care, and that's the person that'll usually stay home with the children and be taking care of the house. And it doesn't matter your gender, it just matters your personality. And one person is going to be better off, better suited to go out and work and earn the money and do that kind of shit. Like when my husband was depressed, I worked and I took care of the kids because he was depressed. He wasn't doing any fucking thing at that point.
Let's talk about that actually, because that's really a very important subject for men. Male depression. So, what happened? How did he become depressed, and what did that look like?
Well, everything was looking real good for us at first. He had a job making $1,000 a week. Roblox, hold on. He had a job making $1,000 a week. I was pregnant. We just got married, just got our first apartment together. Everything was looking great. And then the economy kind of tanked. His job laid him off. We had to move in with his parents. And I think he was honestly a little scared that I might leave him or something because he couldn't take care of us or something stupid like that. I don't know why he thinks something stupid like that.
But it's Amanda.
But I mean, I understood that he got depressed. I'm not trying to say it was stupid that he got depressed. I'm saying I think the reasoning behind it was a little silly because I wasn't going anywhere.
The thing is that you sound like a really good woman. You sound like a great girl. Sound like sound like you take care of your husband and your kids. But from like the MGTOW experience, we don't really a lot. I want to put it like this: a lot of men in MGTOW, we see things a bit different because I think that I don't know. You said that the people around you, the women with you, are they're a lot like you. They have traditional family values. They're not total whores, but I think that on a larger scale, most women. I'm not saying all women, but I think most women today they have nothing of value to offer men, and they don't know how to love men anymore. They don't know how to play these roles. They don't know what it means to be a wife.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
There's some echo. Oh, there it went. Okay. It's just that I wonder what kind of women these men are going after a little bit. I mean, people treat you the way you let them treat you. My ex before my husband, the only other person I've ever slept with, was abusive as hell. But I realized that I allowed that kind of treatment. I allowed him to become that way. He's perfectly fine with his new girlfriend. We just had pasts that were like oil and water and shouldn't have mixed. And I allowed him to treat me like shit, so he began to treat me more and more like shit. So I mean, you have to wonder about how you allow yourself to be treated in a relationship. I'm not saying that's how it is for all of those men, there are just some evil, twisted women who'll do that to you. Like there are just some evil, twisted men who'll do that to women. But I think the um, population of this is much smaller than to be able to say all women or all men or even most. Some.
Well, I'll put it this way. You've only been with two guys, and your husband's only been with one woman. So your experience going out there in the dating pool and
Oh, he
interacting.
dated an evil bitch before me. Like he straight up was thinking about killing himself. He was super in love with this girl in his college. I'm not sure, he's not home really, but so I don't know how much of the story he is comfortable with me telling. So I can't really ask him, but he straight up told me that I saved him, that he was going to kill himself because she was evil to him.
That sounds like the typical woman that men are dealing with these days. I honestly think that you're more of the exception than the standard.
Well, what kind of girl are you? Because, he got lucky. He found a chick like me back in high school when I looked a little dorky and all the guys were making fun of me because I was the prude who wouldn't fuck them. You all wanted the little preppy bitches in high school who were willing to fuck most of the guys, and you're surprised that they're entitled little cunts now as adults. Why wouldn't they be? You done treated them like they were princesses since they were 14.
Well, our feminist mothers told us to.
The decent women are more often than not, they're like me. We didn't bloom until later. Now we're hot, but back then we looked like dorks and we didn't give two fucks.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, yeah, I acknowledge that there are some women who are different, but I also get messages from guys like this. There was a guy who was a university professor, and he was in a relationship with this woman. And this is more of a pattern. He was in a relationship with a woman, and he had one of those perfect relationships where they would spend time at soup kitchens, and people would tell them that your marriage helped keep my marriage together. And something went, his job went south. There was some crap that happened with some women at his job. They were ripping off the university. He went to court over it. He ended up losing the court case, and despite their dishonesty, and his wife just left him afterwards. He was on his way home with flowers. She met him at the door and said, "I want a divorce, and I want you to leave." And that was it. And he told me that when he went to his next job, because right now he's spending time sleeping on the couches, the sofas of family members, he was talking about what happened to him, and he said that a woman at his new job pulled him aside and said she was surprised he didn't know female nature because women love chaos, and no matter how much they get in life, they will always tear it down for that chaos.
No, I mean, there are some women that are like that. My mom's sure as shit like that, but not even most women. It's usually just women who had something fucked up in their own lives that made them crave that kind of chaos. They don't know how to function normally. It's not anything to do with a female nature. It's just the nature of people who get fucked up in the head. There are men like that too. I find it hard to believe, like, you only have one side of that story. I find it hard to believe he had no idea at any point, even when dating her, that she was dating him for status or for what he could give her. Like, women like that, you can tell, or you should be
How?
able to tell,
How do you tell?
because there's no real love in the relationship if that's all they want. You can't fake real love. You can't fake really caring about somebody. If that's genuinely all she was after, and the story goes like he said, and just the second he lost everything, she was like, "No, I'm done with you, fool." That sounds like some cold hearted bitch. So, how could she have
There's
faked love for so many years?
okay. There's another guy. He made a video and he said, "Mgtow, I understand." He said he was in a relationship with a woman for a number of years. They got married, and then she just cheated on him, and then she left him and she went and married the other guy. And he's a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy, and he was hurt. Fast forward, he meets another girl a few years later, and they get into a relationship. And she told him that she wanted to go to school, and she said to him, "Believe in her." So she went to school. They got married, and then after she got her degree, she left him and went and married some other guy, just like that.
That sounds to me like a case of people treat you how, like, I feel for the guy But it feels like a case of people treat you how you allow them to treat you. Is he one of those overly nice people that just lets people treat him like shit and just keeps trusting them? Because that's what it sounds like. I only get one side of the story in all of these.
You
Like,
said keep trusting them, but okay, then you look at the MGTOWs who don't trust women at all.
well, I'm not saying base it on all women. I'm saying base it on the person, on the individual. Like, you can't keep trusting a person that treats you like shit. Like, there's no way that's the only time that chick ever borrowed money from him without repaying it, or she wouldn't have had to say, believe in me. And the first chick, there's no way that she didn't at some point in that relationship let it be known that she wasn't really she wasn't really in that relationship. Maybe he didn't see it because from his perspective he was all happy and in love, but maybe she just wasn't as interested and he was just missing the signs. Like, it's hard to do this from only one side of the conversation. I'll give you a story where I can tell you both sides.
Go for it.
The first time I ever fell in love, I didn't sleep with this guy, but it's the first boy I ever kissed. I knew going in that this was a bad idea. I knew as soon as I fell in love with him that it was stupid. But I fell in love at first sight with my best friend's ex-boyfriend. And she encouraged me to date him. She was totally fine with this. But I knew that all he wanted was to get back with her. And even though he kept telling me that that's not the truth, that's not what he wanted, that he was interested in me and he wanted to be friends, and that we slowly developed into a relationship where we were dating, the second we announced to her that we were now a thing, that we were dating, because the three of us had all been hanging out, she takes him into the bathroom and fucks him because that's all she wanted. And that's all he wanted, was to get her jealous to the point where she would fuck him. And that's all she wanted, was to get to that point to where, oh, okay, I want him now because somebody else has him.
Isn't that female nature though?
But no, you're just looking at what she did. I'm trying to tell you what he did to me. From my perspective, he knowingly did this to me. From his perspective, he would say he didn't knowingly. He had feelings for me up until the point she said she wanted him. He would blame it on her, like you're doing. But he did that on purpose. He knew. We had discussions about this. He had even said at one point when we were first started talking that if he tried, he could use me to get back with Barbara, or back with her. Sorry, I said her name, but y'all don't really know who she is, so that doesn't really matter. It's just her first name.
Okay.
But I have no connection with her anymore, so there's no way they could find her or know who I'm really talking about. But he said that he could do that he could use me to get back with her, but he would never, ever do that. And then he spent the entire time that we were friends and we were in a relationship convincing me that that's not what he was doing. But I knew better in my own head. So it's all dependent upon how you allow people to treat you.
Let's talk about the fucked up laws. And can you admit that things are very much tilted towards women in our society right now?
They are at this point, but especially here in Texas, because I'm from Texas, so that's really all I can point to is our laws. But things are moving to a lot more of an even place very quickly. I'd like to see them moving there more quickly. I'll say that right now. I'd like them to be there today. I'd like fix it. But it's not going to happen that way. And we are slowly and slowly moving toward things are more even all the time.
Such as?
Such as, we don't really do alimony here in Texas. Nobody that I know has ever gotten alimony here in Texas. I don't think that is a law here. But we do have child support, which is child custody and child support are split a lot more fairly. They are taking into account the need for both parents in the child's life. They don't automatically go straight to the woman anymore either. They take into account the background of both parents in deciding who the child should go to for primary custody. And things like in a divorce, it's pretty much always been this way in Texas. If one of you cheats, it doesn't matter if it's the man or the woman. The one that cheats is basically getting nothing. It's stuff like that. It's getting more and more even all the time.
Let's look at the criminal justice system, and this is something that you can see in Texas. Woman goes out, kills her husband, she gets a few years in jail. Guy goes out, kills his wife, he gets a death penalty.
Oh yeah, no, that's fucked. I'm totally for that. We need equality under the law. That's the only place you can have true equality, and that needs to be in place. But you do see stuff happen too. I'm just going to point out, because y'all come from such a male perspective, and I feel like you do need to see there are cases where women get fucked over too. There's a mom here in Texas who she fell asleep on the couch. Like, I can't remember her name for y'all to look it up, but I'm sure you'll recognize the story when I start telling it or be able to easily find it. She fell asleep on the couch with her 2 sons. Someone broke into her house, killed her sons, and attacked her. They were adamant that she must have done it. She must have killed her own children, even though there's evidence saying that she didn't. And she had to sit on death row for a very long time. I'm not even sure 100% that she's out now, but they've proven that she did not do it. There was an attacker. Somebody came in and killed her children. It wasn't her. But because she was the mother and she was there, automatically, you're getting the death penalty. You killed your kids. And they did the same thing to JonBenet Ramsey. They blamed both of the parents, but they went after that mom relentlessly for a long time, even after they started being forgiving towards the father, until she died. They couldn't admit that she didn't kill her daughter, even though they knew she didn't.
I think that in the southern states, they're waking up a bit more. But I think that I'm from New York City, and New York, it's just hogwash. Women literally get away with murder in New York. And that's how it is in a lot of the other liberal states. So while I understand your experiences in Texas, it's just not how it is in a lot of the country. It's very unbalanced and uneven. So
Well,
it might be shut up for a minute. It might be getting better where you are, but it's not getting better in a lot of other places. In places like California, it's only getting worse with things like yes means yes and affirmative consent.
Yeah, I can gladly say that liberalism, like the extreme of it, leans far more towards women, and that more liberal states are leaning more towards women. But that seems to me to be more of a reason to fight these extreme liberals than it does to label all women, especially when you see that conservative women are perfectly rational and reasonable.
Let me ask you this question. So, I mean, you obviously have some conservative views. You mentioned the fact that you just barely have to scrape by a lot of times just to eat and to live. Now, so I take it you've never gotten Section 8.
When I was a kid, like, I grew up in Section 8 housing when we had a place to live that wasn't somebody else's house. Like, I grew up
Mhm.
in the projects. I lived in the ghetto. I've lived every fucking where.
Okay. But as an adult, you have not gotten Section 8.
No, no, not as an
Okay.
adult. Not for me or my children. My
What about
siblings have.
food stamps?
We were on food stamps for a short amount of time when I was pregnant and sick and my husband was unemployed. We really couldn't do much else.
Okay. Yeah, and that's usually when people should get it. But what about the people? What about women who've been on food stamps for 10 years and have raised families on Section 8? When all of this hits, when the shit hits the fan, and you seem like an intelligent girl. When the shit hits the fan, because you know Trump's cutting all of that shit, right?
Yeah, well, I kind of hope they do. Like, we need a weaning off welfare because, like I've said, that's a self-perpetuating system they put in place. It was meant to be a temporary thing that they turned into this. It's not the women's fault. Men will leave their women on purpose just so the woman can get the benefits, or they'll pretend to, and they'll be getting paid under the table and acting like they don't live at that house, and they're still living there and fucking the woman. They just want her to get the benefits. They'll refuse to sign children's birth certificates on purpose so she can get more benefits. Like, the system is set up to where you can't be trying to better yourself or they won't help you. So you get stuck. You can't do any better. It's kind of like when people say minimum wage slavery. I know that's a hyperbolic thing, but this is what they mean. You can't better yourself because then you'll starve to death. That's why I think it needs to be more done on a charity basis than by the state. Because a charity will look at your situation and will understand this is how much help you need because you're trying to better yourself.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. All these programs are going to get cut, and when they get cut, you have generations of women that have become, they've grown up on this, and they're very dependent on the government. I mean, it's a statistical fact that women take way more than they actually contribute. Women will actually have a $150,000 negative impact on society over the course of their lives versus men because of the social welfare programs that they benefit from, everything from healthcare to housing and food stamps. With
But
all of these,
again, that's not the fault of the women. That's the fault
okay,
of the state. They
okay,
set it up like that.
with all right, so with the exception of putting blame on women in this sense, let's talk about what happens next. Food stamps are gone. They put time limits of, let's say, 6 months. You can be on food stamps for 6 months, and a lot of states are starting to do that. And after that, you can't get them anymore. Very much like unemployment. So they put barriers on that. Section 8 is vanishing, and a lot of the jobs that favor women in the public sector are also disappearing. When women can no longer find jobs, when women can no longer get Section 8, they can't get food stamps, they can't get the government privileges and entitlements, which you're against. What happens to these women?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to have to wean people off of this slowly because they don't want the social revolt that will come from them just taking away what they've been teeting out to these people for so many years, so many generations. You can't just rip it away, or you would. You would have famine, you would have starving children, you would have people that were just killing their babies again because they knew the baby was going to starve anyway. You'd have all kinds of insanity.
Do you know how much money is spent on the food stamps program, SNAP program every year in the United States?
Oh, probably a fuckload of money.
Take a
Probably
guess.
not anywhere near as much as we spent building that fucking plane that didn't do nothing, though.
Take a guess how much we spend on it.
Probably like $1 trillion.
No, not every year. But we spend $70 billion a year, over $70 billion a year on the food stamps program, and there are 44 million people on it.
Yeah, it's not really that much when you look at how much they spend on other things. But again, I want them to wean this down. I personally, in my utopia, we would live in small scale communities doing sustainable farming and co-opting together. But I understand that that wouldn't happen unless everybody in the world agreed. So I know that'll never fucking happen. But I do think that they would be better off if they would have, like, the people that could afford to live in the city lived in the city, and poor people lived in more rural areas, and they were able to grow their own food and keep their own animals and sustain themselves.
What you're describing would only work for people in, let's say, Texas or in places where you can actually do that. Places in the northern cities, that's not gonna happen. It's not. It's
Well, that's true, but I mean, we have huge areas of land that are still unsettled, and we waste a lot of our land doing pointless shit with it.
okay. There's gonna be a learning curve. That's the one way I'm gonna put it. And even if we can, people will have to become more brave as things could change. People will have to venture out more. But it's going to be a huge learning curve, especially for women, because historically, men went to work. Sounds like your husband is home, isn't he?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Women would stay home, raise the children, and men would go to work, and they would basically, take care of the family. And then Section 8 and food stamps and those entitlements came along to divide men and women. The thing is, when those vanish, women are going to go back to the natural thing of trying to find a man who is going to want to, go back to a traditional cycle with them. But I don't believe that our system is sustainable anymore. For example, you don't have the ability to really have. It's very hard to have a single one person working and one person going to work. These days, a lot of times, both the men and women have to work just to have a really good
Yeah,
quality of life.
it's not like working is hard for women. Working is just working. Everybody can do it. I had 4 jobs when I was 9. Working isn't hard. It's not like that's something that only men historically knew how to do. We just didn't because it was more economically feasible for the woman to stay home. It made better sense. And
Amanda, you are the exception. You are not the standard. Just based on the way you're talking, the tone of your voice, I can understand that you're not a weak willed woman, but you do have to understand that a lot of women do not have your strength. A lot of women do not have your vigor and your capacity to
well,
think
that's
beyond.
a learned thing, not anything that has to do with just their nature. It's nothing to do with female nature. Women aren't naturally just mentally weak. That's just them. Just that person is mentally weak because they allow themselves to be. You can do whatever the fuck you have to do.
Well, this generation of women, based on what they have learned, and I'll agree with that. Based on what they've learned, many of them don't have the base. They don't have the they don't have the
They don't.
learned behavior to actually go out and take care of themselves. Their lives would fall apart if they weren't getting some kind of assistance. They'll have to actually change and evolve. And the question is, I don't think that a lot of women can do it because they've been doing this for their entire lives. They've been getting those handouts. They've been getting that assistance. They've been treated like princesses. They've been told that, there will always be someone to help you.
Well, I mean, they can do it. They're capable. Just because they're women, it doesn't mean they're incapable. They just haven't had to. And pretty girls, they're never gonna have to. Even if they take away all the welfare, all that, there will always be a guy. It don't matter. The pretty girls will never have to. That's just how it is. You can do whatever the fuck you have to do. Just like pretty men will never have to worry about anything either. They'll always find some old cougar who has a fortune and she'll take care of them while they still get to run around and fuck whatever young thing they want to because she's too dumb or too old to care.
When I was, before years ago, I fell apart. I had like a mental breakdown and I ended up homeless. When I was homeless, I saw some really pretty girls, very beautiful girls. I saw a nine ones out there, and there were lots of girls, and many of them would end up. Some of them got raped, some of them got killed. You don't hear about it on the news. And I thought to myself, that's when I really realized that homelessness can happen to anyone. So to say pretty girls will never end up homeless, I don't think that you really realize the reality of things, that there's a lot of pretty girls who end up homeless, tons of them.
Okay, well, fine, that's right. Turnabout is fair play. Hashtag not all. The majority of the pretty little privileged girls who are used to getting their way, they'll always find a way to get their way. And yeah, some of them, if they don't manage to find that way to get their way, they're gonna end up homeless. And if they don't learn, if they are incapable, then yeah, they're gonna end up dead. But that's just like Darwinism. That's just survival of the fittest. You're either gonna have to, you can either do what you have to fucking do or you can't. And if you can't, then you're not strong enough to survive. It's like vegans. They're not strong enough to survive. They can only do it because society allows them to.
Hashtag I was once a vegan.
Well, I mean, literally, if you can't accept the fact that it costs life to sustain life, you are not strong enough to survive. If they sat there and thought about it, they would realize the plants that they kill to eat, they've killed them to eat them, and they would have a heart attack over that fact. Plants are alive too.
I think you're the one who's going to end up getting an amazing wake up call when you see when things actually do change, shit hits the fan, and you start seeing a lot of women who are not able to stand up. You can call it Darwinism if you want to, but I honestly think you're going to be surprised when you discover that women are not, the average woman is not as strong as you say they are.
I mean, I warned the preppy chicks in high school that if, society ever did downturn, they would end up selling their bodies just to fucking survive. And they said they would. They said, cool, I can always just have sex and I'll survive. That's why I said they'll find a way. Like, I know how to survive. I got my shit all taken care of.
Do you know in Greece right now, the price of sex is going for €2. With a teenager selling sex for €2. That's after the economic collapse in Greece.
Do they have more men over there or something? I mean, if you have well, yeah, money isn't worth anything then. Barter.
I mean, come on. That's what I'm trying to point out, that when shit hits the fan, these are the same women who enjoyed a privileged lifestyle. They're turning around selling their bodies for sex right now. Some days they can't even eat. If they're selling sex for €2 just for the price of a cheese sandwich, that tells you that many days they're not even able to afford basic living costs. I
It
mean,
tells me they're not very good at what they do. Like if I had, I wouldn't, but if I had to sell myself in order to survive, you bet your ass that I would be living all right.
you
Just
think
find
that
you one. You just gotta find one easy mark. Like if you're gonna do that, I mean, if these bitches want to do that, that's what they have to do. If they're not smart enough to do it, again, they're not smart enough to survive. That's all there is to it.
hmm. Like I said, my take is just that when shit hits the fan, women like you are the exception, not the standard. And you're right, they're not going to survive, and women like you are going to step over them as they're begging on the streets.
And then you know what would happen? Women like me would be worth the fucking gold standard at that point. Like y'all
You're
want to talk about the price of women, the shelf life of women and men. If the society that y'all think is going to come about does, all these bitches are going to be died off or, begging and selling themselves on the street. People like me, y'all are going to be like, holy shit, they do exist. Here they are. I want you. And you won't be able to fucking have me.
Oh, your husband must be snickering in the background.
He wasn't listening. He's playing on his phone. He don't pay attention to what I'm doing.
I mean, all right. So I honestly find, I have to say, like, based mom is the exact same way. And I don't know, I think maybe it has to do with the way that you guys were raised and the way that you lived your life, not getting handouts, having to actually deal with things head on. A lot of these, you call them the preppy girls, but I think a lot of women, especially in the cities, they are those preppy girls that you described. More of them are like that. They grow up that way. So yeah, they're going to suffer. They're going to die, and
Well,
maybe you're at.
stop treating them like they're pretty princesses in high school just so you can fuck them, and then maybe they won't be like that when they grow up.
You have to remember that a lot of it is what social, it's society, it's learning. You talked about it, it's education too. For example, men are told these things, women are this, women are equal, women think the same way as men do. There's, the pretty princess. That's not true. You should treat the pretty princess like she's gold, worship her, and everything will go well in life for you. But again, it just doesn't work like that.
You should just treat people like always think of things on an individual level. If men and women both thought like that younger, and when you're beginning to think about relationships and looking for a partner back in high school, you looked at a person based on who they were and who they might be someday, and not based on how they look or what you think about them based on their status. Then things will
Okay.
be a lot better off when
Shut
you're
up,
an
shut up.
adult.
All right, shut up for a minute. Ask your husband if he wants to join us for a moment, for a little
What's
bit.
up?
All right. He was listening. All right.
I drift in and out.
All right. So we're talking about all kinds of things, and here's the thing. You've been with this woman for a while now, and I was talking about female nature. She says she doesn't believe female nature exists. She believes it's an individual thing. It's a person thing. How much do you trust this woman?
And I would say enough. I mean, as far as female nature is like, give me a brief synopsis of female nature that you have envisioned.
Okay, female nature essentially, women are naturally more narcissistic, materialistic, more likely to fuck a guy over, monkey branch to another relationship, more likely to cheat. It's just they're hypergamous, female nature.
I'm gonna disagree with those points. I do believe in the nurture versus providing for the family, being like the male role of being a provider, and the female role of nurturing and taking care of the kids. Just because it's pretty much what I've seen with my family, and it's kind of what I've seen with my parents. But it was my dad wasn't always the breadwinner in my family. My mom has always been a breadwinner. My dad would sometimes have work. He would sometimes not have work. It was just due to the nature of what he did. Um, but as far as more likely to cheat, yeah, probably. But that's just statistics. As far as like just being more cruel and calloused, I kind of got. I'm going to disagree. That's what I've extrapolated from what you said is that I've met plenty of women over high school and college and afterwards, but there's certainly a large gradient that they have. But um,
Uh-huh.
the description that you're giving me is a lot of them are going to be manipulative. That a lot of them are going to be, like you said, narcissistic and all about them. When a lot of them that I've seen over the years, they're more um, I don't know how to put this, but basically they don't have the self-image that they want. They always want to improve their own self-image to them. Where I've seen most guys, yeah, there's a lot of guys that want to improve their self-image, but there's a lot of them that own it. And I think that from what I've seen, it's more about status and economics than anything else. I've seen that most people that were well off in high school and then suddenly they have to go live on their own in the real world. They had a lot. They had a lot better self-image in high school whenever they were on the football team, and then whenever they distended their ankle or whatever and injured themselves, and that was ruined for them. Now they got to go work as a blue-collar construction worker. Yeah, I mean the self-image thing. It's not confidence. Sorry, rambling, but basically, there's a lot of gradients for people that I've seen, and you
Haven't you
can't
ever
really
worried
shove
about
everybody in the same box.
haven't
But
you ever worried about your wife leaving you, her fucking you over in divorce court, losing access to your children? She told me that you guys talked about that and worked it out before you guys even had your first kid. But haven't you worried that has it ever crossed your mind that she'd fuck you over?
and genuinely, if she's going to fuck me over, it's probably would be for something that I've done. That's what I think. That it's not going to be probably super like maybe logistical, like tit for tat kind of deal, but it would certainly be that it's going to be something where I have disappointed the relationship as a whole.
Like when you almost let me die. No, I think he's bringing that up because I said that I thought when you were depressed when we were together and living in your parents' house that it was because I thought you might have got depressed because you thought I would leave you when you lost your job and everything and we had to live in your parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that had something to do with maybe why I thought that's why he brought it up.
That is it. That is part of it. So, I mean, I'd like him to go ahead and answer. When you were in that position, were you afraid that she was going to leave you?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, if I were in the same position reversed, yeah, I mean that would always be kind of a thought, but it's at the same time, it's a rut that you just have to work through, and it was something that we had to work on together through it because it certainly wasn't easy for either one of us. That I knew it was a burden, but it was the cards we were dealt, and unfortunately for our kids, that was the best situation we could be in for them. That we knew that they were in a safe house, that they were going to be financially taken care of, and yeah, I was going from temp job to temp job, and a lot of times I was in work, and a lot of times I wasn't. But I knew that my kids were safe, and as far as the relationship between me and my wife, that was truthfully secondary to them.
Yeah, because we both agree that it's one thing to play the hand life dealt you, it's another to deny your kids better cards.
I was talking with Amanda, and I said to her that I think that she's more of the exception than the standard when it comes to women. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree?
As far as just real quick, what do you mean?
Well, I
Being a
mean,
woman,
sometimes when they talk about women, like when MGTOWs talk about women and how women are, I feel like I should be looking down and finding a dick. So I think that's what he means.
I mean, there are plenty of women that are cruising for dick. I mean, I'll just say that right up front. But at the same time, it's not necessarily the exception. But like I said, you can't shove everybody in a box just based on one category. I wish it were that simple, but
Okay.
um,
So, do you believe that marriage is something that all men should still strive for?
no. I mean, it doesn't matter to me what another guy thinks. If he thinks that getting married is going to ruin his relationship with his partner, then it doesn't matter to me if you get married or not. I mean, sure, you get tax taxes off or whatever. It helps you out financially a tiny bit, but in the end, yeah, if you have somebody that you don't trust to that you're going to be with, then I mean, sure, go ahead and do it your way. But if you trust them, I don't see a point not to get married. But as far as marriage goes, I think it's just more of like the marriage itself. I think it's more of a show to your peers and your families that this is something serious, that we believe that there's no one else for us, that we are supposed to be together, and that we're making that commitment to say that to our family and our friends. Because if I were to back out of that commitment, there would be like I would feel ashamed, whether there were good reasons or not. I would still feel a bit of shame because I couldn't make it work. But if that I agree that that's not for everybody. I don't want to say that everybody needs to get married. Do what you want, basically, as far as marriage goes. I've read plenty of people who just live together or just date for years on end. One of my best friends in college just dated for 6 years and still isn't married. They're just still in that kind of part of the relationship where they're both having fun. They probably both think that they're going to be together forever, kind of deal. But why jump into something that they don't necessarily think they may be ready for, or whether it's financially or emotionally? But ultimately, it's up to them. I'm not going to try to chime in and ever say that, oh, why haven't you got married yet, or why haven't you had kids yet? Because truthfully, it's none of my business. You have one reason or another, and I, for one thing, wouldn't ever want to bring up things like that if there's a reason, not because they can't, like because whether a family member wants to get in their way, or if say there's something medical going on, in the case of kids. I mean, that's something that gets brought up a lot is you're married or you've been together forever, why haven't you had kids yet? And
Yeah, that
got
pisses my older brother off.
I've got friends like that they just now got pregnant after being married for 8 years now, and I know that before I even had my kids, they were trying, and they'd been trying for a very long time, going to specialist after specialist, and it's just.
Weren't they sad when we got pregnant?
I think they were very sad that we got pregnant first.
Twice in a row.
Yeah, by accident.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you this, because we were talking about it earlier. So I want to go back a little bit and get your perspective on it. We were talking about circumcision earlier, and she said that she left the decision in your hands, and ultimately you decided to circumcise your sons because you were also circumcised, but you may not feel the same way now.
Yeah, I kind of regret getting them circumcised. Genuinely, I do. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I don't think I took enough time to make the initial decision with my first son. And I do regret that. I don't think circumcision is necessary. It's got screwed up on my first sons, and luckily
Well,
it didn't require surgery to fix. But I mean, it certainly didn't feel good whenever the nurse used her fingernail to fix it.
I was so mad at her. Oh my God.
Wait a minute. Amanda did not talk about that. What do you mean it got screwed?
I did not mention that part, no.
Yeah.
What do you mean it got screwed up?
So
he had a
hold on. Yeah, there was one part that was basically the head of his penis was still attached to the shaft. So the nurse went and saw it, and he was going to get a lilt in his penis where it bends to one side pretty heavily if it wasn't corrected. And so instead of like making a checkup and appointment, the nurse kind of dug her fingernail in real quick and pulled it back.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I wanted to punch her in the fucking face. She was the doctor, not the nurse. It was his pediatrician that did that.
His doctor did
He
that?
never went to that lady again. I
Yeah.
found a different lady.
Okay, so I will say in her defense, it was over really quickly. He screamed for he screamed for like 20 seconds and then he was fine again. But still, it's like, Jesus fucking Christ.
They were going to wait until he was a year old and schedule him a surgery. It was just a tiny little piece of skin that was still attached because they did a pushback circumcision instead of a cut circumcision, a surgical one. And so it just had not pushed all the way back in one spot. And so, yeah, it would have eventually caused him to have a bend in his penis, but not till he was much older. And we already had it set up that he was going to get a surgery at a year old if it hadn't naturally corrected itself.
I've never heard of, I've always thought all circumcisions were cut. I didn't know there was a difference between a pushback.
No, they take a little ring.
There's a little plastic ring. Basically, they insert it around the foreskin, and it will just kind of naturally over the course of a week or so, just kind of cut the circulation to the rest of the foreskin, and it will just fall off. Is what it is. So it's supposed to be painless for the kid as long as it goes right.
But our youngest, that was a different hospital. They gave him a surgical circumcision.
Yeah.
We didn't know. They didn't inform us it would be a different one.
Yeah.
So why, your wife was saying that, you don't know the difference when it comes to sex. Everything works fine for you, but obviously you're not on board with it anymore. What changed?
We're older.
Lots of internet reading through my days. I've always seen the threads on the internet of cut versus uncut, and I've always been cut, so it's never been a problem for me. So I didn't really think of it as a big deal. I would have liked to keep my kids naturally uncut.
I did try to encourage you to research it too. You did not.
I did look it up. It's just I just didn't think I would regret it later if I did get them circumcised.
I think you were worried about having to have the talk with them about you looking different than them and them possibly looking different from other kids in the locker room.
That part doesn't really matter to me, but then again, that was 5 years ago.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago. I don't know my state of mind at that point.
Okay, so Amanda said that if they bring it up later on in life that you guys cut us and we're not happy with it, she said that she was just going to tell them to suck it up because it happened and it was not done through ill intent. Are you going to give them the same explanation? Because you were the one who made the decision.
I would tell them I'm sorry if you really feel that way, but the deed's done. What do you want me to do about it? I would tell them that cosmetically they can add a foreskin if they want to later in life, but at the same time, it's cosmetic. It's not like it will have all the same nerve endings that the original foreskin had. So unfortunately, I deal with questions of like, what do you want me to do now for you? Because there's nothing more I can do for you all the time. And
you thought you were making the best decision for them at the time.
Yeah, at the time I thought we were going to lower their chance of infections and things like that, and be a little bit easier for cleanup and things like that. But at the same time, it's not like it was a real big concern of mine.
In all honesty,
for things like that.
With how sensitive our oldest son's skin was and how often he got diaper rash and infection, he probably would have had to have one anyway.
Maybe.
I mean, we can't know for sure, but I'm just saying he was an extremely sensitively skinned child. He would constantly get diaper rashes. My sister worries that he's going to end up with psoriasis like her.
Like in cases, again, maybe, but I can understand in cases like that where you brought that up, that's when I think circumcision is appropriate, when, you know, it becomes like a health risk. There's a potential health risk later in life. That's when circumcision is, you saw a kid is circumcised and you explain to them, well, you were having problems and we did it so that you would not hopefully have any of those same problems later on. But it wasn't done for, cosmetics. Because I think cosmetics is one of the worst reasons to do it.
Agreed. Like, making it look the same was never really part of my decision-making process. It was more of the fact of I didn't do enough research of the benefits of whether or not it will actually improve like infection rates and rash rates and things like that. But that was always like, that was the kind of thing, the reasoning why my parents did it, as well as religious reasons. And I just kind of continued the trend on that one for the same reasons of not wanting them to be more prone to infections and things like that. Just
you did it partially for religious reasons.
No, not me. That my parents did it for religious reasons.
You know, it's weird when you say that. Your parents aren't Jewish, are they?
No, I'm
Okay.
aware. I'm completely aware of Kellogg and all that stuff. I'm completely aware of those stories.
Okay, so you understand that it's not you don't understand, like, the Christians even distance themselves these days from circumcision.
Yeah,
his family's church is a little different.
Yeah, they try to keep it to the book, as it were.
Are you an Adventist?
Do what?
Are you a Seventh-day Adventist?
No. It's called Church of Christ. It's like it's kind of like Baptist, only no instruments. Try to follow, just the Bible how it's written, not try to do extra interpretations, is what it was.
But they don't follow the Bible how it's written because they think dancing is a sin and Jesus danced. We couldn't dance at our fucking wedding. That bothers me.
The reason for that, I will explain, is because it's provocative to some people. That's the basic answer I have. That's always the answer I got whenever I asked.
You swing dance.
Yeah, that was later in life.
What day do you guys go to? Do they worship on Sundays or Saturdays?
Sundays.
Sundays, okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of millennials are also becoming very. It's not even. I think it's a statistical fact. A lot of millennials are beginning to abandon a lot of the religious beliefs that they once held.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, I mean, you said it. That's it. I mean, I believe the same thing. Is that once you get out of your parents' home, your mind starts to develop its own thoughts, and you look at the rules that you've always followed in your parents' house and question everything, basically.
I think that's why I'm different than other people, because my rules were I set my fucking rules. Like, I've always since I was a toddler, I set the rules. So I've always thought for myself.
Okay. So based on what we discussed, the original topic was, why are women so evil? But in reality, neither of you believe that women are evil. You think it's more of an individual thing, and you think it's more for selecting a person versus, choosing someone who has good qualities versus someone who is more likely to take advantage of you.
Yeah, you just have to know the person you're getting involved with.
I mean, I've known plenty of women back in college and things like that. They would never intentionally do anything to hurt another person. They were very kind-natured that way, but it's the unfortunate part of, if you like them and they don't like you back kind of thing, then they're gonna fucking break your heart. And the same goes vice versa for men against women. It's just, I believe it probably happens a little less often.
Well, I mean, what about the snowflake generation where a woman sleeps with a guy in college these days and then says it was rape? That's, how can you say that's not intentional?
I'm not saying that that's not intentional. No. That one is my opinion is going to be that it's going to be basically buyer's remorse, is the best way I can put it. Is you bought into this relationship, however you want to define it, and you regret it afterwards, and you want to make it where you benefit more than just regret out of it. I don't think that calling rape after a consensual sex happens that often. I do agree that the people who
It's
do that,
happening
though,
more often.
they're either sociopaths or psychopaths. But I don't really believe that it's happening more often. I think it's just being reported about more and more now.
Well, I want to say something about them bitches though. Them bitches are fucking evil, and they make it harder for bitches who actually go through shit. Because I'm a victim of shit when I was younger, to actually come forward and fucking say anything. You make it harder for people to believe when somebody does come out with a story that it is hard to prove. It's hard to fucking prove when this shit happens to you, especially if it happened to you when you're younger. So when you do stupid shit like that, you make it harder for actual victims, and you're just as fucking evil as the rapist, and you should get the same fucking punishment.
Well said. Honestly, I think if more MGTOWs heard things like that, I think they would honestly, I think it would help to heal a little bit of the damage, because for a lot of MGTOWs, they've gone through these things. There's a lot of MGTOWs who have, dealt with false rape claims, and then they start thinking, well, wow, all women are like that, and they start to even question the women who say that they were raped when they were children or were legitimately raped, because it starts to literally put up a barrier where you start to distrust women as a whole.
Yeah, it makes it hard when you make a false fucking claim. It makes it hard to believe it. I also think that these damn teachers that go out and fuck little boys, them are some evil bitches that need to be locked up, just like men that fuck little girls. Them are some evil fucking bitches. I had to kick
What
a
do you
chick's
think?
ass.
What does your husband think?
What do you think about them bitches? What would you do if one of them bitches tried to fuck one of our boys?
I'd probably hit her.
I'd fucking kill her.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it depends on what kind of age category you're going to be in. Of course, anything under 16 is going to be something where somebody is going to be seriously injured. But as far as 16, 17, and 18 as a male, yeah, you're still taking advantage of them, but it's going to be hard to say that they didn't want it, just living as a 16 and 17-year-old guy.
Dude, you watched
Okay.
How I Met Your Mother. I know you loved that show. What about that episode where Barney goes back and visits the teacher that fucked him when he was a little kid, and he actually comes to realize how much it fucked him up and fucked up his relationships with women? If you
The
extrapolate that
teacher
out to
had,
real life, what if it really does that?
I watched How I Met Your Mother. That wasn't a teacher. That was a friend of his mother, wasn't it?
That was.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. I'm thinking of a different show where it was a teacher.
Yeah, same premise. It's a MILF that was around, and yeah, it probably could fuck it up. I mean,
I would fucking kill the bitch for fucking my kid up in the head like that, and she'd be locked up in a little fucking room somewhere, and I'd be crying. Same thing I'd do any pedophile that came near any one of my fucking kids, because my nieces and nephews are my kids too. They'd be locked up in a little room somewhere, and you'd see me on the TV crying, "Oh, they're missing. You need to find them and punish them." I'd be fucking punishing them.
I honestly think this is what I honestly do think is going to happen, because we're seeing more and more conservative women, women like you. Women, if you notice Kellyanne Conway, she's very much like you. And honestly, I think that we're going in a direction we're going to see more women like you, maybe taking more of a prominent role in society. And as this happens, I think that it's actually going to, you call them the pretty bitches, but I honestly think that a lot of women are going to suffer because of women like you.
Maybe. But I think maybe that's why everybody was so eager to get me on YouTube, I guess. They need more voices like mine.
Well, honestly, I think that there's always here's how it's gonna work with this, and I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen right off the bat. when we look at the comments after this video is done, there are going to be a bunch of people who are going to say that you're full of shit, that you
Oh
are
yeah.
just like all the other women. But then there are also going to be others who say you make a lot of sense. You show that not all women think that way. And I mean, when you're outright saying that you would slaughter a bitch if they
I
touched
would.
you,
Beat
I
the
can hear, I
fuck
can
out of
tell.
one of my sister's friends because she was 18 and she fucked my little brother when he was 13. I kicked her ass.
What?
What? I did. Everybody knows I kicked her ass. I did it in public. Everybody in that town saw. I kicked her ass.
So, like I said, it's honestly going to come down to that. And we do live in this snowflake generation. So it's definitely going to be different when more women like you step up and say, yeah, we don't actually care, especially dealing with the snowflakes. So I think that there may be a radical shift in society. I do see a radical shift coming, and I think that we were very much at the left, and then we're going to end up very much at the right before things end up somewhere in the center. And I can't really say that I sympathize, but I do think that again, having this type of dialogue, it does help to open up the minds of some guys who are receptive to it, and even the guys who are going to leave negative comments after they watch this video. It'll still put it out there and help to perpetuate that there are some differences. Maybe not every single woman is necessarily like that, although a lot of them are. And there definitely is some change coming amongst us. I think that as women are getting older, you're getting older as well, perspectives change as well. And we know that as people get older, they also automatically become more conservative. That's a fact. So there are changes happening, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's good. It was good having you on today because it will definitely bring some conflict to the MGTOW, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, having me on is definitely going to bring some conflict to you. Watch for comments from the Red
Yeah.
Pill Ghost. It'll be hilarious.
Yeah, I just love it. My viewers, they troll me even, but it's not bad. That was the original thing with MGTOW, having a space for open dialogue. And it can become very easy to end up like the feminists, where you end up in an echo chamber and you only see one perspective because you've been hurt so much, or you've been seeing so many statistics of all things that are happening. You can no longer see anything outside of it. You can have a really bad relationship with one woman, and then the very next woman can be really awesome. But again, a lot of times it's just so difficult to leave the comfort of I don't want to use the word hatred, but of maybe being a little, yeah, there you go.
Apathy is a good word for it. But yeah, it's really just get to know the chick before you invest your whole heart into them. Like, don't fall into the lie that infatuation is love, and you're much better off.
It's good that you said that, because there's a guy in the comments named Tom McCormick, and he's been going around asking for advice on this one itis that he fell in love with. And he paid me, he paid another guy. You've heard of Sandman, obviously.
Yeah. I think
Paid
Sandman,
me.
yeah.
He paid me to do a video on it. He paid Sandman to do a video on it. And he's just been going back and forth and asking us, each of us, what does he do with this girl? Because it's like he's in love with her, but she's not in love with him, and he's looking for the right answer. So I can agree with you to some degree that there's some guys that do it to themselves. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just tell him this. If he's genuinely, truly in love with her, then all he's going to care about is her being happy, whether it's with him or not. If he's just infatuated with her and obsessed, then all he's going to care about is getting her.
What's the difference?
If you're you want the if you're truly in love with somebody, then you care about that person, about their happiness, about, like I was telling you about my first love, that boy. I knew that he was using me. Honestly, I kind of went along with it because I didn't care. I loved him that much that if he was going to be happy with her, then he could go for it. And, if that's what he was going to decide to do when it came down to it. And that's what he decided. He turned out to not be happy with her. She continues to use sex as a weapon against him. She got married to somebody else, cheated on her husband with him, and got pregnant. then left her husband and now has him raising her baby and is living in his house and will not fuck him. So he made a bad choice, in my opinion, but it was still his choice.
Okay. All right. Well, I think this is a good point to wrap it up. We've been going for probably at least an hour now. So definitely want to thank Amanda and her husband for popping in. And guys, if you have any questions for Amanda, I will have her channel linked in the description. If you have any questions for her, definitely ask her. Please do not troll her channel, attack her channel, just because she's a girl in the clubhouse right now. Okay. So if you have any questions, definitely ask them. Don't attack. Be nice. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to Mgtow or death. And cheers.
Bye.